So I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Sandy Robertson, and just a little bit about my background. I have 4 adult children that I'm very proud of, I'm very excited about. I've spent the majority of my life in business and have been very successful in scaling lots of businesses and working with private equity groups. And currently what I do now is manage what we call a family office, which really acts as an investment vehicle and group. And so that's enough of my background and the history. And the only point of really telling you those stories is to understand what it's like to be a taxpayer, understand what it's like to take risk and to sign the front of the check, understand what it's like to make budgets, to adhere to it, to try to produce outcomes, understand how meaningful and how you put that together, and the impact that has on lives. When you're employing 700 to 800 families, it makes a difference to the decisions that you make and the decisions that you do. And so that's the point of kind of bringing that together. I decided to run for Congress after I'd run for mayor in the city of Rocky Mount, and I'll just tell you a little bit of that story. Rocky Mount, if you don't know, is about 65% African American, it's approximately 70+% Democrat, and I'm a very unlikely choice for mayor. But what we found is that folks were looking for leadership. Folks were looking for a specific set of issues. And I ran a number of polls, before we went about this process. Embarked on the journey really to change the conversation, because I really felt like that's all I was going to be able to do. Well, much to my surprise, I won by 60% of the vote, the largest voter turnout that we've ever had in our city. Clearly, it was Democrats and Republicans and all racial groups were represented in that vote, so I came out ahead. I'm very proud of that fact because it makes me very electable. And that was one of the keys as I was looking at whether or not to move forward with a run into Congress, whether it would make sense given the first district's demographics. So my first week in office, I got a call from the state auditor, Beth Wood, and she presents to me a lovely report of about 80 pages long. It outlines a number of corruption types of issues that we'd had within the city of Rocky Mount, to include just a number of things. Y'all can look it up. And long story short, I asked for some resignations. I mean, I got beat, and went through every route I know to try to get some sort of satisfaction what I thought were taxpayers of Rocky Mount. So I called Josh Stein on Saturday afternoon. I said, Josh, I really feel like I need your help here. I need you to activate the SBI, and I think there's some investigation here that really would behoove you to move forward with. And he said, no, look, I'm not going to do that. You need to deal with your local DA. Well, so I called my local DA, who's also yours, and he said, Sandy, it just doesn't rise to the level of criminality. And I said, please, but you can still investigate. Maybe it doesn't rise to the level of criminality, but certainly the report would suggest that there's some challenges here that we really need to be looking at, and you need to investigate, and I need you to prosecute. Sandy, it just doesn't rise to the level of criminality, and that's just how I'm going to leave it there. And I'm going to tell you, as a resident of Rocky Mount, I'm also just as angry as you are about this, and saddened and disheartened, but that was the end of the road. So in the process of that, I started thinking, well, what can we do to really make a change? And I contacted my senator at the time, Senator Lisa Barnes. She still is. She's a fine, outstanding lady. And said, Lisa, we don't have a law, apparently, that prohibits a locally elected official from basically abusing their power. We researched it. Sure enough, that was the case. She sponsored a bill called Senate Bill 473. It's passed. It now creates a Class H felony if you're a locally elected official and you abuse your power whatsoever. And so I'm very proud of that. While I've not shepherded all the way through the legislature like our friend Lisa Barnes did, to be the genesis of thought of that really is the point I'm trying to make to you. Is that just because, in my experience, I don't necessarily have the authority or the power, or it doesn't seem possible, doesn't mean that there aren't solutions that can be found. When you try to understand what you're trying to problem solve for, then you can find every asset at your disposal and try to mobilize that into the right directions. And so when I look at the first district, I look at a number of challenges, but primarily economic development. We've been left out of the prosperity that North Carolina has really experienced over the last 40 years. We've just been left behind. And so I think what we need to do, my primary focus would be to try to gain the funding for I-87 to complete that road, which is 17 to the Norfolk ports, all the way to 64 to Rocky Mount, connecting to the intermodal. To create an economic development zone that would absolutely have tremendous impact for virtually every county in the first district. And if we can tie that into broadband, we create access points that really will allow us to better our lives in so many different ways. Clearly, one of the challenges that I see is that America just really is experiencing a tremendous amount of inflation. And I think that's because the Progressive Party component of the Democratic Party really has taken control. And we need to stop that. We need to stop that now. We need to go back to some Trump-era policies when we were looking at energy independence. You know, if we could reduce the cost of oil right now back to Trump-era levels, it would reduce inflation almost at a most significant rate. It'd be the biggest thing that we could do. It touches each and every one of us. If we can quit paying people to stay at home and get them back into the workforce, that also will help us. So I look at a country that looks weak around the international stage. I mean, Russia has invaded Ukraine, obviously because they don't believe we're going to do anything about it, and we've been very slow to react on that. China is also talking about taking over Taiwan. We're hearing this over and over in international rhetoric. We are weak. I think we need to restore ourselves back to a position of strength that we have been in, that we should have, that belongs to us. I believe that we should create economic development and prosperity, and I believe all these things are possible, and I know that I can help do that. So what I'm asking you to do is to vote for me. You can vote now through May 15th, and then you have the 17th, so that I can become the Republican nominee for the 1st Congressional District. What I'll tell you in my individual polling is that I believe that I win the seat if I get through the primary. My polls have indicated that I have a favorable margin against Don Davis and Erica Smith, two likely Democratic nominees for this position to run the race in November. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. So I think I'm uniquely positioned. I think because I'm from the area and have been for many, many years, I think I can keep the seat. This is the first chance that we've had as Republicans to claim the 1st Congressional District seat in my lifetime. And I believe that I'm the guy who can keep that, hold that seat, just based on the experiences I've had as mayor in Rocky Mount, just because I understand what it's like to try to get outcomes. I'm an outcome-oriented fellow, and I think that's important for everybody to know and understand. Now, I can keep on talking about me for another 20, 30 minutes, but I think it's probably better if I just answer some questions. I think I've touched on a little bit of my experience. I've touched on my experience as mayor. I've touched on my electability. I've touched on what I believe, and I'm willing to open the floor. Anybody has any questions?
What do you think, Willie?
Good stuff. Come on out.
Oh yeah, man. Burgers, dogs, cheeseburgers.
Good time here at our Second Amendment greet and meet.
Thank y'all for lunch. It was great. I really appreciate being asked to come and speak with y'all and visit with you. I'm going to do a little bit like Sandy, tell you just quickly who I am. I know a few of you guys already before I got here. I'm Buck Newton, and I born and raised here in Wilson, graduate from Hunt High School, just right over there probably, and back in the 80s. And I'm an attorney by profession. I came back here to Wilson to practice law with my grandfather when I finished up. I conned my wife into coming back, and she's from down in Greene County near Snow Hill, and she kind of liked Raleigh at the time, and I said, no, we need to go to Wilson. And so now she's very glad we did. We have been married for 27 years, and we have 3 children. My youngest is at North Carolina State as a freshman, and my oldest graduated from there about a year ago, and my middle one is working for a living. And so I own a couple of businesses, and I know what it's like to make payroll and sign the front of the check, and I know what it's like to pay quarterly taxes, and a lot of folks don't know that, and a lot of folks don't appreciate what goes into running the business. But the folks of Wilson County honored me once before, back in 2010 in Nash County. Honored me once before and elected me to be their state senator. And back then, North Carolina was really in a difficult place. You know, we'd coming out of the big economic downturn from '08, and we had massive budget shortfalls, about $7 billion. That's a lot of money in North Carolina terms. It's a lot of money anytime, but not to the federal government, but it is to North Carolina. And you know, it was really difficult situation. We had the highest taxes, we had the really high unemployment, very difficult time. To make it short, we turned the state around. I was up there for 6 years, it was Wilson and Nash, and later on it became Wilson, Nash, and Johnson. The voters kept sending me back for 3 terms. And then in 2016, I ran to be your attorney general against that guy, Josh Stein, that wouldn't help Sandy with his problem. I would have helped Sandy with his problem because I knew exactly what the problem was that he was facing, because I had represented Nash County and Rocky Mount, and I was familiar with some of the folks that this report, highlighted about their bad acts. And but I think the point that I would want you to know, and the point that I think Sandy has illustrated is you need leaders who are willing to roll up their sleeves and solve problems. And this problem that he illustrated about what was going on, nobody had done that before. Well, when I was in the North Carolina Senate, some of you may remember, I'm sure Thomas remembers because he works for Wilson Energy, we had some real serious electric bill problems around here. We had some of the highest electricity rates in all of the state of North Carolina, and that put us high in the whole country about what our rates were. Rocky Mount suffered the same thing, and everybody kept telling me, you can't do anything about it. You can't do anything about it. Now people were upset, and I had paid a $900 electric bill in the middle of the winter before, and my business had paid hundreds of dollars, really high rates. And I could afford to pay that because, I've worked hard and God's been good to me, and I was able to pay those kind of bills. But regular working folks, they can't pay those kind of bills. A lot of struggling small businesses can't pay those kinds of bills. Think about your church. When you think about their power bill, how many people can't they help because they were having to pay, in my church, like a $10,000 electric bill? Something had to be done. Everybody said you can't do it. Well, I went up there and I got together with Jeff Collins, who was from Nash County. We got elected at the same time, and we put our heads together and we worked really hard, and it took almost 4 years to get it done. But we engineered a plan where the reason why it was so expensive is all the cities in eastern North Carolina, about 33 of them, they own part of a nuclear power plant and some other power plants. Well, they owned that by borrowing a bunch of money. So about 20% or more, depending on where you lived, of your bill was paying that debt off. So what we figured out was, let's figure out how to get the cities to sell out their ownership and pay off that debt, and then everybody's bill will go down. So we got together with Duke Progress, and it took literally behind the doors, knocking a few heads together, and I won't tell that story now because it would take too long, but it was a funny story, and we got their attention. And after about 4 years, we figured out, and all 33 cities agreed to sell out their ownership interest to Duke Progress, and Duke agreed to pay. Well, in Wilson, I don't know what it was in Rocky Mount, but in Wilson, that cut residential electric rates 25% the first year. In less than a year, more than $10 million had been saved by residential ratepayers right here in Wilson County. That's $10 billion in our economy is a lot. And that was in less than a year. So my point is that when you have common sense leadership and you've got dedication, you're willing to fight to fix things, to make it right, and put in the hard work, get under the hood and keep tinkering with it and keep working with it and keep messing with it until you find the right combination, you can get things done. And too many politicians aren't interested in that. They're just interested in the next election. Frankly, they're interested in being part of the club. That's not what I'm interested in doing. I'm interested in running to be your senator again because, frankly, there are dark clouds on the horizon. Everybody here knows that Joe Biden has just about run the country in 6 months into the ground, and it's only going to get worse. And a lot of these problems are going to fall to the state of North Carolina to solve, because Sandy can't do it alone. Whoever's in Washington, whoever we elect as president, we can't undo this mess overnight. There's a lot of it that's got to be done right here in Raleigh, right here in North Carolina, right here in our community. And I see that coming, and that's why I saw this election. I wanted it was a good opportunity, and frankly, I was not too enthused about the other folks that I thought might end up being your senator if I didn't run, to be perfectly blunt about it. And so I decided this was the right time. My wife and I talked about it. We prayed about it a long time and decided this was the right thing that we were supposed to do. So, I'm here with a group that appreciates our rights, okay? And appreciates the Second Amendment. So I want touch just before I stop on just a little bit about where I come from on the Second Amendment. So one of the first things that I did when I was in the Senate, I was named a Judiciary Committee chairman, which means that committee dealt with all the legal bills that dealt with the laws of North Carolina in terms of criminal, civil laws, court systems, all that. All that went through my committee. And as a freshman, I was chairman of that committee. So one of the first things I did was I worked with people in the House and in the Senate to put together comprehensive reforms to enhance our Second Amendment rights. So I wrote the language that is North Carolina's Castle Doctrine. Now, I figure everybody here knows what Castle Doctrine is, but a lot of people probably don't realize that in most states, the Castle Doctrine only deals with your home. It presumes that you're in fear for your life if somebody's breaking into your home. There's a presumption. But in North Carolina, it's your home, your vehicle, and your workplace. Not like most states. So if somebody's trying to carjack you, Taylor, okay, and they're trying to break in your car, you don't have to call your lawyer and ask permission, or am I allowed to shoot him in self-defense? Or can I assume he's going to hurt me and maybe drive me off somewhere in the country in the middle of the night? You shouldn't have to worry and call your lawyer. And I'm a lawyer, and I like to be called. But I don't want to be getting that kind of call. I want you to be able to defend yourself. And that's why I pushed the Castle Doctrine. And that's why we got it done. I had a case in Rocky Mount where a gentleman, he and his wife, and they were not old, but they were older black couple from Greene County who ran a vegetable stand in downtown Rocky Mount. And they got robbed. And Buddy Moore, they both passed away now, but Buddy shot and killed the robber. Well, our DA, they prosecuted him for first-degree murder. First-degree murder. I took the case. My partner tried the case because the judge sandbagged the self-defense instruction, wouldn't allow him to argue self-defense, even though he testified on the stand that he was feared for his life and the life of his wife and his grandson. That was his testimony. They would not allow a self-defense instruction. Well, this is what motivated me about the Castle Doctrine. This particular case really made it clear to me, you got a bunch of people 3 weeks, a month later, second guessing what's happening in a split second. I said, this is not right. We got to do something about that. But I took the case to the Supreme. I had to win that case in the Supreme Court of North Carolina for him to have his conviction overturned and for him to get a new trial. And then the DA decided that they weren't going to try it again because they knew if he got a self-defense instruction, there was a reasonable Eastern North Carolina jury that were going to say, oh, no. You trying to rob the vegetable stand, you put your hand in your pocket and you start pulling it out, somebody's in fear for their life. We're not going to allow that. So that was a very motivating case to me and that's one of the reasons why I decided that I needed to do that. So I believe very strongly in the Second Amendment. I've been endorsed by the NRA. I've been endorsed by North Carolina Grassroots. So that ought to tell you where I stand on the Second Amendment. I will fight for you and I will fight for your rights. I will always fight for the innocent lives of the unborn. I will always fight for smaller government. I will always fight to shrink the taxes that you pay and minimize the taxes that you pay. You know, government is a necessity, unfortunately. But frankly, it's also like a cancer. And the more you feed it, the more it grows. And unless you hold it constantly to a diet, it will get out of control. And everybody in this crowd here knows that big government right now is out of control. And every single day our values are under attack. So I'm Buck Newton, and I'm asking for your vote. Primary is ongoing right now. I already forgot the number, but it's less than 300 Republican votes have been cast in Wilson County right now in 3 days of voting. So you can vote starting Monday for the next till 14th of May, and then election day is on the 17th. So I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking to be your senator again, and you can count on me. I've got a voting record. Go look it up. I've got a very conservative voting record. So thank you for letting me speak with you today. I appreciate it. Thank you.